Okay, let's see, where are we? Chapter 7. Create an existing ORD DTM terrain model from another software, which that other software in this case is Geopack. In Geopack, you're used to working with a TIN file, right? An exterior TIN file. And like almost everything in ORD, everything is located just right within the DGN file itself. So let's go over to in ORD. Let's open up that 3D file that we created. So I'm just going to browse over to that, and remember we called it terrain exist, and it was a 3D file. Let's go ahead and open that up. Make sure it's pointing to the right work set. Student your number. And this is going to vary, just like the alignment did. I said really start now, probably going forward, mostly from surveys. You're going to find that those alignments were processed directly in ORD, not necessarily imported. There's still a lot of surveys out there that you're still going to be importing, and same here. The same with terrain models, or DTMs, digital terrain models. The existing DTM in ORD is not called a TIN file. It is called a terrain file, right? And if the survey would have been processed in ORD, you would find that your topo and your terrain are all in the same file. They're all one and the same, which will be fine. But until that happens, which won't be too far off, I've seen some already that have been processed that way. More than likely, though, now you are probably taking a TIN file and creating a separate terrain file. So in this case, we are going to create an existing terrain file from Geopack, and it's going to be a standalone terrain. There's no topo in it. It's just a standalone terrain, which is perfectly fine. Okay, so in order to do that, we go to the terrain tab, and we want to bring in that terrain from a file, and there's that TIN. Now I think I did this earlier, but let's always check this just to make sure. Let me make sure that my coordinate system is set properly. Oh, I didn't set it. Okay, it's probably good. We did here. So I'm going to go back up and use that east, that state plane east again. Set that. Okay. So now I'm going to import that TIN, and it's going to bring up this dialog, and I can see it listed here. I can see the projection listed. I'm saying that I want to go ahead and just set the feature definition, not after the fact, but as I bring it in, I can do that by setting the feature definition here to existing boundary. Is the one that's most typical that you'd bring it in at. Source file units really should be US survey feet. And what do you want to bring in? I just want to import just the terrain only. And what was the coordinate system of that? Well, it should have been the same one, I believe. Wouldn't necessarily have to be, but usually the same. So let's go ahead and click import. You can see it being processed there, and then there's my fit view on the dialog. There's my terrain. So and it's just the boundary of the terrain here in 3D, and that's of the whole project. For this class, I just broke out just this little section at the end, this realignment project. But let's go ahead and kind of analyze this thing a little bit. Let's do some of the things that you'll find that you're doing in anytime you're going to find yourself bringing this terrain into most design files. And normally when you do, you're going to select it, and you're going to want to say, I want this to be my active terrain model. And so, like I said, you just hover, and on your element selection, you want to be using that one that's on the far left. It works, the pop-up works a whole lot better than if you're on plus. I don't think it'll pop up there. You really need to be on that last one. I can hover, and then when I do, I should get those choices. There we go. I'm going to make that my active terrain. I can go up to my view tools. I can go view rotate, and I'm normally rotating in my dynamic mode. I'm probably going to want to snap, turn my snaps on here. I think I'll go with nearest just to grab wherever. So I want to move that pointer, grab it. Now I can kind of spin it around like this. So you can see that we're in 3D. And now, even though I set that feature definition to only boundary, the boundary is the only thing that's showing, but it's actually a total DTM. So let's just again hover over it one more time. Let's go to element info, and let's just turn on the triangles. So I can kind of override that, the feature definition, and I can still kind of make changes after the fact to it. I can turn my triangles on and off. You see what happened there when I wasn't attached to something? You always want to make sure that you're snapped to something, and it'll be a whole lot easier to move this thing around. But yeah, you can see that it's 3D. I'll turn off the triangles, and you can do all this, just kind of follow along. Turned on contours, the major and minor ones. If I went back to the home tab, let's see, let me just make that top view, and under civil analysis, analyze point, you see if I select that terrain anywhere, I can move anywhere within that terrain, and this should not seem drastically different, even though it's a terrain, not a 10, it all works about the same. It should be pretty intuitive, I think. If you just move your cursor around, you can grab an elevation or slope, or any place that you want. We had very similar tools to this in Geopack. Or analyze between 2 points. Select that terrain model, and then I can select 2 points, and it's going to give me the slope between those 2 points. It actually put text in the file too, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that out. I don't need that. Okay, so that's really about it. Not much to it. It's pretty much as simple as that. You probably want to leave this I would say with everything turned off. Just leave it as boundary. Otherwise, you'll see later that you're required to have this reference to many files, but you don't want all that triangles and all that stuff kind of in your way. Then you have to override it and all that stuff. Let's just leave it like this. Leave it as a boundary. And that is the end of Chapter 7.